Your dog just yawned because you did, and that's not a coincidence. Contagious yawning is the automatic, involuntary act of yawning triggered by seeing, hearing, or even reading about someone else yawning. It's not a quirk. It's a measurable neurological response studied in laboratories across 3 continents. In 2008, Ramiro Jolie Mascheroni and colleagues at the University of London confirmed that domestic dogs catch human yawns. More precisely, dogs are far more likely to yawn back when the person yawning is someone they know and trust. The leading explanation is the empathy hypothesis. In humans, contagious yawning correlates with the capacity for empathy, the ability to read and mirror another individual's emotional state. The closer the relationship, the stronger the response. Here's where the story deepens. In 2003, James Anderson and Pauline Mino at the University of Stirling demonstrated that children under 4 don't reliably catch yawns. The behavior emerges as social cognition matures, which tells us this isn't a simple reflex. Something more complex is happening. Dogs were domesticated from wolves somewhere between 15,000 and 40,000 years ago. During that process, natural selection didn't just change their bodies. It reshaped their social brains, specifically their sensitivity to human faces, cues, and emotional signals. Wolves, the closest living relatives of dogs, don't catch human yawns. In Teresa Romero's 2012 study at the University of Tokyo, a wolf control group, captive, hand-raised animals tested under identical conditions, showed no contagious yawning toward humans. That gap between wolf and dog is tens of thousands of years of selective pressure. The most rigorous test came in 2012. Teresa Romero at the University of Tokyo designed a study where 25 dogs watched both familiar and unfamiliar humans yawn. The results were precise. Dogs yawned back at familiar humans significantly more than at strangers. But here's where it gets harder. A competing hypothesis argued that dogs yawn when stressed, not when empathizing. If that were true, an unfamiliar human yawning might trigger more stress yawning, not less. The data needed to separate those two explanations. Romero's team measured cortisol, the primary biological marker of stress, in all 25 dogs before and after testing. Cortisol didn't spike during contagious yawning. The stress hypothesis didn't hold. Empathy remained standing. The mechanism most researchers point to is the mirror neuron system. Mirror neurons fire both when an animal performs an action and when it observes that same action in another. They're the neural architecture of imitation, and possibly of empathy itself. Dogs possess a functional mirror neuron-like system. EEG studies published in 2014 by researchers at the University of Veterinary Medicine in Vienna recorded canine brain activity during observation of human actions, showing patterns consistent with motor mirroring. There's still a genuine debate here. Could dogs have simply learned, over thousands of repetitions, that yawning follows yawning the way a treat follows a sit? Learned association and empathy produce identical behavior. Separating them requires cleverness. In 2013, Ivan Norsha and Elisabetta Palagi at the University of Pisa published a key insight. They studied spontaneous real-world yawning in dogs, not lab-triggered yawns. Dogs yawned back more to owners than to strangers, even when no reward was ever involved. Norsha and Palagi also found that bond duration predicted yawn contagion strength. Dogs who'd lived with their owners longer showed stronger contagious yawning. The longer the shared history, the deeper the mirroring, a quiet record of time spent together. That yawn your dog just caught from you, it's not random. It's a readout of your shared history. The longer you've lived together, the more precisely your dog's nervous system has tuned itself to yours. That's not metaphor. That's measurable biology. Underlying this is oxytocin, the neuropeptide associated with social bonding and trust. In 2015, Miho Nakasawa at Azabu University in Japan demonstrated that mutual gaze between dogs and their owners triggers oxytocin release in both species simultaneously. Both species at the same time. That oxytocin loop matters here. Each moment of mutual attention, a shared gaze, a calm sit together, reinforces the neurochemical sensitivity that makes contagious yawning possible. Bonding isn't just emotional, it's pharmacological. The relationship is written in brain chemistry. But step back for a moment. Empathy evolved to help animals navigate their own social groups. Why would a dog's empathy system extend across the species boundary to a human? That's the question most researchers didn't think to ask until recently. The answer is domestication itself. Adam Miklosi at Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest has spent decades documenting that dogs are uniquely adapted to read human social cues. Not dog cues, not wolf cues, but specifically human ones. Selection pressure pointed their empathy directly at us. Miklosi's team ran a now famous experiment. Both dogs and wolves were shown a human pointing toward hidden food. Dogs followed the gesture immediately. Wolves, even those raised by humans, largely didn't. The difference isn't intelligence, it's social orientation. Remember the wolves who couldn't catch a human yawn. Now the wolves who couldn't follow a human point. The same gap appears again. Domestication didn't just tame dogs, it rebuilt their social attention system from the ground up, oriented entirely toward us. In 2019, Julianne Kaminsky at the University of Portsmouth discovered that domestic dogs have a facial muscle wolves lack entirely, the levator anguli oculi medialis. This muscle produces the inner brow raise that makes dogs look attentive and emotionally readable to humans. Wolves cannot make that face. That muscle didn't evolve by accident. Kaminsky's 2019 paper argues it evolved because humans responded to it, because that inner brow raise triggered caregiving instincts in our ancestors, making those dogs more likely to be fed and protected. Dogs evolved to communicate with us, and we evolved to respond. The empathy runs in both directions. Here's why this matters beyond the living room. Animal welfare researchers now use contagious yawning as a diagnostic tool. A shelter dog that fails to yawn back at familiar handlers may be showing signs of social detachment, an early indicator of chronic stress or trauma. Service dog training programs are beginning to use the same logic. Guide Dogs UK and KNGS Geleidehonden in the Netherlands now track social mirroring behaviors, including yawn contagion during puppy assessment. Dogs that mirror strongly tend to bond more effectively with their eventual handlers. The deeper implication is this. If empathy can cross a species boundary, if it can operate between a human and a dog, then empathy isn't a uniquely human trait locked inside a uniquely human brain. It's a biological function, ancient, flexible, and built for connection. One question science hasn't answered: What does it feel like from the dog's side? We can measure the yawn. We can measure the cortisol. We can map the oxytocin. But whether your dog experiences something like the warmth of recognition, that remains genuinely open. Here's something most people don't expect. Dogs catch yawns from sound alone. Researchers played audio recordings of human yawns to dogs in separate rooms. No visual cue, no person present. The dog still yawned back. That rules out simple visual mimicry and points directly to an internal social recognition process. That yawn we opened with, the one your dog caught from you, isn't a small thing. It's a 15,000-year relationship expressing itself in a single involuntary breath. The oldest cross-species partnership on Earth, still running, still signaling, still alive in your living room. The research gives us something practical. Quiet shared time, sitting together without distraction, making calm eye contact. Simply being present isn't idle. It's the neurochemical work of building the bond that shows up later as a yawn caught across the room. The dog at your feet isn't just resting. It's reading you, right now, in real time, with a social intelligence tens of thousands of years in the making. The next time it yawns when you do, you'll know exactly what you're seeing, the measurable signature of a bond you built together.